Have you ever heard about the mysterious Russian soul? An uncharted deepness that separates the Russians from the others. I bet you wonder, what is it and what makes them unique? So it's time to reveal the secret. Russians are so special because of their unprecedented, cruel and awful homophobia. LGBT movement is more dangerous for the future of humanity than global terrorism. Those were the words of a dean at Moscow State University on a Russian official state TV program. And that is not some random statement. That is a Russian official position. They've gone too far. These gay guys. This is a powerful lobby. It is absolutely everywhere. In movies, on television, and in the highest echelons of power. That's everywhere. They've gone too far. We will deal with it. Member of Russian Parliament Brulyaev is one of the creators of the official law about the ban of so-called LGBT propaganda among children in Russia. This law is actively functioning. In Russian Biysk, a 16-year-old schoolboy was fined 50,000 rubles for propaganda of non-traditional sexual relations among minors on the internet. There is another law, and it implies responsibility for any demonstration of anything linked to LGBTQ on the internet, books, cinema, etc. For instance, if some internet platform will publish a film where two boys are kissing or maybe just hugging, well, that's against the law. Punishments for such terrible violations could be a fine, or if you're a foreigner, you could be deported. Russia's State Duma passes law banning LGBT propaganda. Individuals who spread or attempt to distribute what the bill calls LGBT propaganda will be fined up to $6,000. Legal entities can be fined up to $82,000. Foreigners can be arrested for up to 15 days or deported, according to the bill. According to the text of the document, no media product in Russia should, quote, contain information that promotes or demonstrates non-traditional sexual relations. But it didn't seem enough for Russians. The Russian parliament is also discussing an amendment that introduces criminal punishment for talking about LGBTQ as something normal. If someone repeatedly breaks this potential law, they can be sentenced to 1 year of prison. But what could be cooler than a prison sentence for speaking about gay people? Only a secret prison for gay people in Russia. Novaya Gazeta spoke about the secret prisons for gays in Chechnya. Gay detainees in Chechnya are sent to the secret prisons, writes Novaya Gazeta, citing testimonies of people of non-traditional sexual orientation persecuted in the republic. Chechnya is not a lunatic country in the middle of nowhere. It is a part of Russia, as for now. And the head of Chechen Republic, Ramzan Kadyrov, is Putin's best friend. Reprisals against Chechen gays. Publishing stories of survivors. Homophobia is one of the main elements of Russian ideology, like for example historical chauvinism or masturbation to Stalin's atrocities. Russia views the LGBTQ community as its enemy because in their mind it represents the Western world. Not kidding, LGBTQ took its place right next to NATO in the Russian ranking of top enemies. They even present the war in Ukraine as a war against LGBTQ. Take a look at another official Russian TV broadcast. We'll keep going until the end, and we'll defeat those LGBT troops. That's verbatim. I'm quoting the commander of the Matvey Platov 6th Cossack Regiment Vladimir Polopoltinych. We'll smash those LGBT troops. Russians think that if they lose the war, Russia will suddenly become a democratic state with a normal attitude towards LGBTQ. And they are so scared of liberalization that they better send their children to die in Ukraine rather than let them see the LGBTQ pride. Listen to the bearer of the title of Hero of the Russian Federation, the highest honorary title in the Russian state. To achieve the victory so that our children do not march under the LGBT flags, so that our children do not go to gay parades. Some of you who know Russian propaganda myths about Ukraine will say, wait a second, but Russians are constantly talking about Nazis in Ukraine. How does it fit into the Russian war against LGBTQ? Nazis always severely pursued gays, why would Russians do the same? You're completely right. Russians are so anti-Nazi that they are Nazi. For Russian propaganda, there are no contradictions. They easily put LGBTQ and Nazis in the same category, as if they were synonyms. Ukrainian Bandera Nazi authorities committed genocide against the Russian people, against Russian speakers, against those who do not accept LGBT, transgender, Nazi values. It's even hard to comment on such absurdity. It is the same as if someone said that Cartoon Network makes child porn. You don't argue with such people, like, no, they don't, they have Ed, Edd and Eddy. This also proves that you can't negotiate with Russia because Russian officials carry the same horseshit in their heads and they are simply inadequate.
We're also fighting for the fact that in Russia there won't be, as the president says, instead of mom and dad, parent number 1, parent number 2, and parent number 3. LGBT today is a tool of hybrid war.
Some Russian officials have even built their political career on homophobia. For example, Russian MP Alexander Henstein, who you've just listened to, or Vitaly Milonov, who is famous for his propositions to sterilize all gays. Milonov is also an MP in Putin's party, United Russia. The chairman of Russian Duma Vyacheslav Volodin proudly declared that there are no gays in Russian parliament. And Russian people loved it because they despise the LGBTQ people and have no respect for them.
The Levada Center, which is a non-governmental research organization in Moscow, Russia, published the findings of their recent survey. According to their findings, 1 in 5 Russians want to eliminate LGBTQ people from the Russian society.
Russian politicians are not playing some tricky games here. They just match the homophobic desires of their electorate.
LGBT, gender, radical feminism, radical environmentalism. This is the package of ideas that has been formed recently. This is a tool to intervene into other countries.
Russia is so homophobic, they will probably exclude red and blue colors from their flag, just to make sure they have nothing similar to the LGBTQ rainbow.
The Independent Social Research Centre has discovered a doubling in hate crimes against LGBT people in Russia since it enacted anti-gay laws 4 years ago.
Russian officials, propagandists and casual media personas talk about the threat of gays and transgenders nearly on a daily basis. Which threat? Nobody really knows. Probably even Russians. Maybe Putin fears that Lil Nas X finally breaks out from that gay prison and writes a diss in him that will lead to a gay coup.
Sexual minorities came out of the underground and went on the attack without delay. The heterosexual majority sits in a deep defensive position, while the LGBT communities that have unfolded in full force dictate the terms of sexual surrender to the whole world.
This is a typical show with typical homophobic rhetoric on Russian TV. By the way, this channel is called Zvezda, which means the star. Red Star, yes. This channel is officially sponsored by the Russian Ministry of Defense.
Russia's lower house of parliament voted unanimously in favor of a bill to ban the adoption of Russian orphans by same-sex couples, unmarried couples and single parents in countries where gay marriage is allowed.
Russians on TV often accuse Western pop culture of making their children gays, lesbian and transgenders. Once again, I'm not kidding. Time will come and Russians will fabricate streaming subscriptions for their political opponents to throw dirt on them.
So we watched The House of Dragons, and in the middle of the movie, somewhere around episode 5-6, there was a, well, sort of a gay scene. Two men went into a hellish kiss. I just turned it off and told my wife, "That's it, Natasha, we won't be watching the show from now on."
If Russians would have discussed cancer as much as they discuss homosexuality, then we will already have a cure for this disease. Talking about diseases, Russians think LGBTQ is a virus that has spread across the world.
This LGBT virus is still very actively penetrated into the culture. It is now everywhere. That is, it is practically, in my opinion, impossible to distance yourself. That's a question for you, Sergei. How do you protect children from this?
This was a footage from the show on the official Russian Parliament Political Party channel, where they discussed a topic, quote, "Who stays behind the Russian gay lobby?" Maybe someday Russians will finally create special clinics where they'll try to change LGBTQ people or make some filtration camps for them. This is Russia, and any cruelty is possible there. And Russian officials already talk about this. Russian officials are calling LGBTQ persons ill and spend a lot of time discussing how to cure these people, which in reality means restricting their rights.
I had a pure rejection, well, a natural rejection of this ugliness, of this pathology and sin. Well, this is both a disease and a sin. These are not genes. And if you're sick, well, go get a treatment.
Russian attitude towards LGBTQ is a perfect example of how Russia can hate people who are not doing any harm to them. If you were wondering, that is an answer to why Russians are so good at staring to the horizon with their complicated face. They think how deeply they hate gays. But their hate can be easily targeted at any group of people united by religion, interest, nationality, culture, or something else. If you're doing something that doesn't even have a slight connection to Russia, you're still a potential target for Russian aggression. Nobody is safe when today's Russia is alive, and the world must defend itself from it. By the way, we're shooting these videos with your donations, so if you want to support the fight against Russian propaganda and help Ukrainian voices to be heard around the world, please consider subscribing to our Patreon or donating to our PayPal directly, or use a link to the Ukrainian bank payment system. All the links will be below in the description. Thank you very much. Bye.